Hi everyone, welcome back into the studio today. Today is video 2 in my beginner series. This one is crochet must-haves for real beginners. In the last video, I talked to you about how I started my crochet journey and things that you need and versus don't need. And today I just want to kind of go back over that a little bit. I feel like my last video may have been a little too long-winded for some of you. So we're going to get right into it and try to keep this one as short as possible. That way you don't have to sit through the really long one unless you really want to. Today we're going to go over those types of things, and we're going to do it as quickly as what we can. All right. So when you're first starting, it's really easy to feel like you need everything or like you're missing something important. But honestly, you only need a few basics and a whole lot of patience. The first thing that made the biggest difference for me was having a hook set. And the hook set that I really loved was this simple little hook set from Amazon. Relatively cheap. I got a wide range of hook sizes. They were less than 20 bucks, I believe. But that made all the difference in the world to me because I could figure out which grip size worked for me the best. For you, you may not have the hand issues that I have, so the grip may not be as important. Maybe you are perfectly okay with just a plain aluminum hook set, and that's perfectly fine. The tool doesn't matter as much as learning how to use that tool, but the hook does matter as far as what makes your hand comfortable. So keep that in mind, and if you need to, try different sets until you find that hook set that is right for you and your hand. Now, in the beginning, your tension changes so much. The tension is the amount of pressure that you put onto your yarn while you're holding it and feeding it into your work. You want it to be able to move through your hand, but you don't want to have to pull it really hard. So you want it to flow, but not so flowy like that. See what I'm saying? So you want it to learn how to tighten your tension without over tightening your tension. You don't want to pull so hard that you break your yarn, because a lot of yarns will break really easy the more tension you put on it. If I really wanted to, I could snap this yarn really quickly. It really wouldn't be that difficult. So you do have to be careful with how tight your tension is. The last thing you want to do is be mid-project and snap your yarn. So, tension is something that takes time to learn. You're not going to have it down at the very beginning. It's going to take you a while to learn how to keep the tension the way that's right for you without over-tightening it or having really loose loops. All right? Yarn labels are suggestions. I remembered to grab my yarn this time. If you don't know or have never heard of Premier, definitely check out their website, premieryarns.com, because they are freaking amazing. And the Parfait Chunky has so many so many colors. It's very quickly became my #1 favorite yarn ever is Premier. So, continuing on. On the label, one of the things that I love about labeling system here in the US is I'm so sorry, it is going to be a little blurry. This number right here is the weight of the yarn. The second box here is if you are a crocheter, what size crochet hook you're going to want to use. And this first one here is actually for knitters. That's for the knitting needle size. So for this particular yarn, I'm sorry it was blurry. You couldn't see it. It was probably too far away. For this particular yarn here, it is saying that you will want to use an 8mm crochet hook and an 8mm knitting needle. Now, this is on the thinner side, in my opinion, and I can very easily use a size 6mm crochet hook with that yarn. And I tend to do that while I'm making my plushies. I use a 6mm with Parfait Chunky. Okay, that's the yarn. Here's the thing. The number that they put in that box on what hook size, it's just a suggestion that they feel is correct for that yarn size. However, you can go up or down based on your tension on any given day. A size 6 for me works wonderfully with that. I could sometimes go down as far as a 5mm hook with that yarn. That's a me, and that's a my tension problem. And that's okay. So you're going to want a hook set that is going to have multiple sizes so that you can determine which hook size is right for whichever yarn you happen to choose to work with. It lets you experiment. It lets you figure out what feels right in your hands, because that's the part that matters. What's comfortable for you and your hands. Doesn't matter what works for everyone else. It's what works for you. You'll also want a good pair of scissors that you're only going to use for yarn. You're also going to want to have a yarn needle with a large opening so that you can fit your yarn into the eye of the needle. And this is not something that you have to have, but if you're like me and you start with blankets, or maybe you're starting with wearables, maybe you want to make a scarf or a shawl, or maybe you want to make a top, stitch markers will become your very good friend. You don't have to have stitch markers. You can just use a scrap piece of yarn to mark your place. And that's perfectly acceptable as well. So you don't have to have stitch markers. But for me, because I started with blankets, I have a lot of stitch markers. Way more than any one person really needs. I have over 300. Technically, I have over 400. But we're not going to go there. That's a me problem. You tend to lose your little stitch markers a lot. So having an abundance of them is just what works for me. No judgment. This is a judgment-free zone, okay? They don't need to be fancy. They don't need to be expensive. Again, stitch markers are very helpful when you're brand new, especially with blankets, because they will help you keep your ends straighter if you are placing them in the correct spot at the end of the blanket, at the start and at the end on both sides, okay? They're not required, but they help you track where you are. And if you don't have any, again, you can literally use pretty much anything as a stitch marker. You can use a piece of scrap yarn. You can use a paper clip. You can use a safety pin. You can use just whatever you've got. You can use it to mark that particular stitch, all right? Here's the cozy reminder that I wish that someone had told me. You don't need a craft room. You don't need 500 skeins of yarn to get started. You don't need expensive tools. You don't need to buy everything all at one time. And you definitely don't need to be perfect. You're not going to be perfect. Crochet is supposed to be comforting, not stressful. It's a relaxing hobby if you are just doing this as a hobby. Either way, it should not add more stress to your life. What actually helped me more in the beginning is the repetition. Making blankets, experimenting, learning the feel, letting crochet be slow. Because it doesn't need to be fast. We're not in a rat race, people. There's no reason to be. Let the mistakes happen. Embrace those mistakes. Learn from those mistakes. Do you need to frog back a whole row because, oh no, I messed up on this stitch in the row before, and now I'm halfway through the next row. How do I fix that? Well, you have two options. You can frog it all the way back, which means ripping out your stitches all the way back to where you made that mistake, or you can let it be, because although you may notice that mistake, the average person isn't going to notice it. But by catching it, you've already started to train your brain. That was wrong. You forgot to do this step. Once you have that figured out, you've already taught yourself. It's very easy once you learn how the stitch looks with what you stitched, right? I know that doesn't make sense. Your hand movements and how you loop the yarn forms the stitch. And that stitch has a certain look based on the stitch that you made. So whether it's a single crochet, it's going to look one way. If it's a half double crochet, it's going to look a little different. If it's a double crochet, it's going to look even more different. Each stitch has its own look. If you're using a 4-worsted or smaller weighted yarn, being able to see those stitches is fairly easy, and you can break apart. Well, this was the first step, this is the second step, and then this one here made the third, so that's my double crochet. Or whatever. Okay? Letting mistakes happen, these things are things that helped me in the beginning when I was first starting, but I wish that someone would have told me ahead of time. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be. And as you do it more often, and you are doing it repeatedly, your stitches are going to get better and better. So, take your time. Let it go slowly. You don't need everything, just those few basics. A pair of scissors, a needle, a stitch marker if you want those. You don't have to. And your hook set. And of course, don't forget your yarn, because yarn is a tool we all need. So until next time, y'all, I will see you in the quiet place right here. And remember, be you, always. Bye, everyone.